boys. Let's remember our training.
We are some hippies, these are my friends. Come along with me, see how the story ends. We are some hippies, these are my friends. Come along with me, see how the story ends.
Welcome back to another episode, everybody, to the Professional Hippies podcast. We have a wonderful guest today. I've known him from previous years and glad to reconnect with him. One of the top hustlers out there in the Tampa Bay area. His businesses are growing like crazy in markets you probably never even thought of. So, Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man. Thank you guys for having me. Long time no see. But hey, man, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
It's
man.
funny, before we even get into it, Dylan, I just think it's interesting. Shout out to Thancia that what a common thread she is in so many people's lives.
Oh,
right?
shit. Yeah, she is, man.
So
She
Thancia
is.
is actually the friend that I've probably had the longest. I used to live with her, Michael.
Oh,
So
wow.
the
Okay.
fact that our paths haven't crossed up until this point, I'm kind of fascinated by as well.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe that too. Yeah, I thought y'all knew each other too prior to this. So that's awesome. Y'all get to meet here.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, so I'm excited to hear a little about if we were to start from the top. I mean,
For sure.
you live in the Tampa Bay area, right?
Yeah, man. Pretty much, with Dylan, actually, because I think I remember Dylan. So you were friends with Julian, and I was going to HCC at that time, and I think I remember you. We used to like party together, me, you, and I would go over to what's it called, Campus Lodge, right? Was it Campus Lodge?
Well, there was Campus Lodge. There was the couple on 42nd Street. There was a couple
Yeah,
of them we went
all
to.
those boardwalk, yeah, all those things. So I remember just hanging out with y'all and just going to all those parties. So, but yeah, I mean, from there it was like actually that's actually where a lot of my story started. When I was in
Partying.
college, I just partied. I literally partied so much. I didn't finish my AA degree, but I just
Hell yeah, brother. That's the kind of partying we're talking about.
bro.
Look, if you're not partying like you're trying to lose a scholarship, I don't want to be your friend.
Yeah, exactly. So I was partying like crazy, man, and just like for 3 years straight, just partying like crazy. And I remember one night where it was like the new people were in the apartments, and I just remember just when I went to this party, I just remember looking around, being like, "Damn, nobody has my back here. Like, what am I? I'm wasting my life, you know?" And literally the next day, I called my mom and I said, "Mom, I got to move out of here. Um, I got to get out of here." So I left the apartments, and that's where the journey really started. From there, I did the Landmark Forum. I don't know if you guys heard of that or done that, but
Dylan, have you done that yet?
Not yet, but you have a Landmark Forum Pro here, Michael. I mean, he's been
Yeah.
I don't know how many of them.
Join us, Dylan. Join us.
I do. I need to do
Become
it.
one of us, brother.
go in the cold, yeah. So yeah, exactly. After I did the Landmark Forum, that's actually when I became a serious hippie. No, I'm just kidding. That's when I became like a
Plug.
serious. That's when I became a serious like entrepreneur. Like I saw the possibilities of it was kind of like, wow, I can create anything I want. Like I don't have a boss. I don't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no ceiling above me. And I just felt so like that concept was just so crazy to me. Like it was like, oh my God, I can do that. And that was like the beginning of it was actually in one of the landmark courses, the advanced course, which I realized I was like, wow, And before that, like, get this, before that, I never even thought about like being a business owner or anything, or doing anything by myself. Like, didn't even, it wasn't like, was not one of those guys that like, they were like, had like a lemonade stand when they were like 8 years old or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't hustling at school with candy bars, you know?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it was just interesting how, like, my story is different because it was like, it was an awakening, you know, older, you know, when I was older, about 21, 22. So, pretty interesting.
Well, older. Most people call that pretty young, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
To
I
come to
think
that
you're.
realization at that age, yeah, I think a lot of people would think that's pretty young. It sounds like you got the sounds like the partying and landmark was way better than an AA degree, anyways.
Yeah. I mean, definitely.
Wait,
Definitely.
Michael, you never went back and finished your degree?
No, never finished. Nope.
Do you understand how society's going to look at that? I
I
mean,
know it's bad. Yeah.
I'm
The
kidding, dude.
next
Who
Steve
gives a
Jobs
fuck?
here.
But you know what? I make more than most high professionals that have been working for years.
Well, that's
So,
the point I'm trying to make. It's all relative, right? Like, I
exactly.
wish more people embraced finding their path versus looking at like what they didn't complete.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
so kind of fill us in. Like, what kind of businesses do you have? What do you do? What are you up to now?
Sure. Yeah. So, what I'm up to now is I have a, one sec, guys. The wind got really strong. Hold on one sec.
I
Well,
gotta
Glenn,
join
if
this landmark thing.
you got to join it. I was going to do a note to Glenn, but Glenn, you're a part of the show as much as anyone else.
So, yeah, I mean, from what I'm doing now is I actually have a business. I flip diabetic products all over the nation, and I have 9 virtual assistants that run that business and just keep it churning every single day. And then I just started this pallet business, buy and sell pallet business in Tampa.
Mhm.
So that's actually why I came back to Tampa to start it. So yeah, I've actually, the funny thing about that business was I actually was, um, I was studying that business for like 2 years. I was traveling and, you know, doing a bunch of crazy things and stuff. And the whole time I was thinking like, man, I want to get back and start a business. So it was pretty funny.
After already being successful with one, you're like, I'm bored. I need to dive back into it.
Yeah, it was like, because I got bored of the traveling and just, I don't know, maybe it was just like free time, just a little bit too much free time. And it was like, you know, I just needed something to get that like hunger back. You know what I'm saying? And
Well, for context, like when you say pallet business, what do you mean by that?
so what we do is we remove pallets that like businesses don't need, and then we resell them to businesses that need them. So you could basically call it like a pallet recycle, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the way that I'm doing it is a little bit different. I do a lot of I'll actually go to the businesses myself and pick the pallets up, and and then I just, you know, I sort them out, and then I sell them. You know, because we have 3 different grades. You know, we
Mm-hmm.
got grade A, grade B, and then grade C. So one is perfect pallets,
Mm-hmm.
grade B is repaired pallets, and then
Mhm.
grade C is broken pallets. So, you know, there's 3 different kinds of pallets that you can sell. It just depends on who needs what. So,
And how did you like? You said you studied this for 2 years, right? How did you? What like got you interested? You just see people starting throwing out pallets, and someone else asked you for a pallet.
well, the
How
thing,
did
you
that
know,
come out?
the funny thing is, like, the thing that I feel like I can do is I can spot a need inside of an industry. So I knew the level of competition that the people around me were. Like, normal pallet guys, all they do is they just get in their truck, and they live a good life, don't get me wrong. They get in their truck and they just drive around and try and find pallets out near dumpsters. Well, what I'm doing is, I got 4 virtual assistants that are calling every single day, making appointments, and then so we're doing it the opposite way. We're going to places that actually need us, right? And then at the same time, we're providing customer service too, because a lot of times these pallet guys, these pallet companies, they're usually not good with their customer service. There's usually nobody available and stuff like that. And like I said, the service is just not on on point. So I just from doing the DTS business, diabetic tester business, I was like, man, this is be a perfect business to inject virtual assistants and customer service and like professionalism into it. And
I was just about to say that it seems like the type of guys you normally see probably doing pallet jobs are just people. I mean, honestly, that they don't do much of else. They just, like you said, drive around town with their small pickup truck, hoping to land
yeah,
something that day. And then a
exactly,
smart guy comes along and is like, I can make this way better. I could. There's a referral process here that could come into play.
exactly. And so yeah, I just really looked into it for 2 years. I was like, man, I could dominate this industry. And the thing I like to look at is I like to look at high margins and like, what is the competition? So I knew that the margins were high and the competition was low. And, for me, the way I look at opportunity, I was like, okay, can I hire somebody to help me? I don't want to do it all myself. So, you know, um, yeah. So
So the
that's kind of
competitive
the,
advantage is really professionalism, customer service, follow through. And what are you mainly leveraging here? It sounds like virtual assistants, right?
absolutely. Yep.
So just, I mean, are you comfortable walking through some numbers? Like when you say like margins, just, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if that, okay. So let's get on an idea. Like I'm curious around the virtual assistant because we're bringing on one right now to source guests for our show. And
Nice.
I'd forgot I worked with one like 3-4 years ago. And
Yeah.
it's funny how the universe works. We talked about bringing one on, and a couple days later, she reaches out and she was just like,
Yeah.
"Hey, Colton, I used to work for you. If you got any work, I'd love to get." I'm like, "What?" And what? 3-4 years go by in like a couple days, So it's funny, but anyway. So like, where are you sourcing your virtual assistants from? How'd you find them in the first place? Because I know from previous experience, my previous company, I turned and burned a lot of them. So are you going through a third party, finding them yourself, or?
No, the way that I do it is I go so in the beginning, the way that I did it was I would just add myself to a bunch of virtual assistant groups. So there's a lot of groups out there, and I actually have a course on this. But there's groups out there that you could just add yourself to, and then you can put posts up, and then get start the interview process. So the way I look at that whole thing is like, okay, you have to make their job so easy that like you could teach a third grader.
Mhm.
And so that's the way I think of it. So like if I get a pretty good virtual assistant, I'm going to make them great. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, so that's the way I do it. That's the way I did do it in the beginning. And then, I was actually really lucky because the first couple ones that I had, uh, they were good people. The
Mhm.
first, was it the second, first or second? The second girl that I hired, um, she ended up being like my number one virtual assistant, and she died last year. Rest in peace.
Mhm.
Um, but she ended up being such a solid piece to my company, and then right after that, I hired another virtual assistant. She became my manager, but she was second on though at the time. But she slowly became better and better, to where she was like running the show with the two when I first started. And yeah, so I sourced from Facebook, and I think To be honest, I really think that I have a way of telling when people are good or not. Like I can, um, I'll help them as much as I can, but like, I can really, I think that I can find good talent and just like intuitively sourcing the people, So, and
Yeah, I
one of
mean
the good
that's a
things,
skill in itself, right?
for sure. And then also one of the good things too with the Facebook groups is you don't have to pay as much as if you go through a company, even
Hmm.
though, because I actually, when I first started, when I was in real estate too, I've been in real estate. And I remember I went through like three virtual assistants, and it was costing me like pretty much all the marketing I had at that moment, at that
Hmm.
time. And like I just went through a lot of them. So if you do it yourself, you just have to be a decent trainer and make things
Hmm.
very easy, but you save a lot of money that way. And then also what happens is you create a relationship with them as well.
Right.
So it becomes about, it's not, so it's there's nobody in the middle that's controlling
Mhm.
anything. You got the full control.
That's loyalty, right?
And you get the loyalty, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, an interesting thing you brought up is like in that training process, like that's something that has still deterred me from like coming back around to hiring people. Is that sometimes I mean, it's always on the person recruiting, it's always on the person that's looking for the talent, but it's like,
Right.
man, you send a duck to eagle school, they're still a duck. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so like you can only take somebody so far, and you're like, you just got to recognize where their ceiling is and where they can break through. So
Yeah,
curious, when you break that down, I mean, how many calls are these VAs making a day? What are you compensating them? Do you have like kind of a bonus structure in place for them, like incentivizing them, or are they just like down to work hard? Like, how do you kind of incentivize them to? I'm just curious what the outreach looks like.
so they make calls. So I have like four different pieces right now. So I have a girl that is a sales trainer, and she also like manages and she listens to the conversations. And then I have two cold callers, two people that do the cold calls. And then I have one person that adds leads. So this person is just responsible for adding and harvesting leads.
Mm-hmm.
And what I compensate them, how much am I compensate? I pay them 144 a week.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then if they make appointments for me to go to, I pay them, I want to say like I think like $1 and five, 150 for each
Mm-hmm.
appointment. And then I also pay them on the back end when we sell our pallets. Um, I still haven't paid them on the back end yet, just because I've had a lot of people fall through with buyers fall through,
Really?
but we just got a really solid buyer. I got like 500 pallets in storage right now,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much long story short is a lot of the time, because I have my business already running, I'm just like, I could have sold these pallets a long time ago, but I just been trying to find like a good buyer to like really work with,
Uh huh.
very like, a strong relationship.
Sure.
And, just been having like a lot of the buyers just fall through.
That's
So
interesting that you're looking for that reoccurring business type buyer. You're not
yeah,
looking for just, what the other guys are doing. They're just trying to sling the pallets, get rid of them as quick as possible. And
exactly. Yep.
you're actually trying to build a business around it. So that's interesting. That's even that next level that you're trying to do a professionalism is I'm looking even for a specific buyer in this
Yeah.
in this
Long,
tip
long
particular
term.
space.
Exactly. Yep. And yeah, I could have sold these pallets and probably, like a couple weeks ago, but I have another business that I'm like, that one's just like pumping out. So like I'm sitting and trying to find the best and perfecting everything. Like I don't need to have four virtual assistants right now, but I'm just like perfecting the process, and we're learning a lot of things. So, um, it's really nice when you can actually pursue a business when like with no pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was a lot different than my first business, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think the pallet business is going to be pretty large. So, and just to give you some context on margins, um, one pallet, a grade A pallet is $10. So if I get one, let's say I remove 10 for free. You know, a lot of times I'm taking 90% of my pallets I'm removing them for free.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, if I get 10 grade A's right there, that's $100 like that. So, um, there's so the cost is the gas and obviously the VAs, but the margins to actually get the pallet itself is super small, when this bit, and the thing about this business is reoccurring, it's reoccurring. So the longer I stay in the business, the more clients I get, the more customers I get. So it's like, so the margins are nice.
So when you're saying you're selling a grade A pallet for $10,
Correct. Yep.
okay, and then a B would be like what, $5, $6?
B is, all these prices vary just depending on what market you're in.
Uh huh.
But generally, people will sell pallets grade B at 750 per pallet,
Hmm.
or even grade A sometimes. There's a mix. They do mixed loads too, and
Sure.
usually people are at like $8 to $7 usually for mixed loads. But if you can find like a really like a decent buyer and
Hmm.
not sell too fast, like I'm doing, kind of like just hold, you can find like good buyers that will pay 10, 11, you know, and 10, 11, even up to $14 sometimes. And yeah, so
And what's
like
the
in
turnover like? If you went to like you're probably dealing with companies that are what, produce based,
correct, yeah.
consumable goods.
Yeah,
Um,
so the turnover, it's really nice because like I actually hit a humongous milestone today with finding a good buyer. Literally the buyer. So with this particular buyer, I had talked to him 3 times, and those 3 times he told me like these really small numbers. Like I'm talking like $3 per pallet all
uh-huh.
across the board. And he had told me that a couple times, right? And I think because I was new, he was kind of like, oh, this guy's new. He's probably going to be done with this eventually. And I started selling him grade C pallets.
Mhm.
And he started seeing my face more. I was
Mhm.
kind of like that dude that just hung around, like kind of
Sure.
like just fucking passive. Hey, 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 you know, asking him questions like, hey, how do I do this? What do I do? Blah, blah, blah. And
Mhm.
then just over time, I think he's like, oh man, this guy's here to stay. Like this guy won't go away. And my virtual assistant called today, and um, she got information from him, and he told her to for me to call him and talk to him. And so it was a big milestone, um, like to get that, because we've been working real hard just to find like a solid buyer that we can work with and we could build a good relationship around.
Mhm.
And so to answer your question, like when it comes to like turnover, for example, like tomorrow, let's say I go get 50 A's. I
Mhm.
can literally just take those A's and go right to his warehouse and he'll pay me out daily.
Mhm.
So
That's a
that could
solid
be,
number.
you know, it's a lot,
And that's what
$500
and that's
cash.
exactly what you were looking for. Like that's the waiting game in this
Exactly.
instance, pretty much.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I could have sold them for like $5 a long time ago. I could have just started doing that because all these pallet places they're like, they deal with like these low end guys, I guess you could say, that they don't really have much business. They don't negotiate, so they just kind of like and people are going in and out of this industry. There's no level of professionalism a lot of the times. It's
Mhm.
very rare. So,
I feel like you're
you
dealing
know,
with a lot of guys that just come out of prison type of guys,
no, I'm
and they're
telling
just
you,
looking for a
it's
job.
true. Yeah, I'll go to I go to a lot of warehouses, so I'm really
Yeah,
like used to dealing with that. I'm really, to be quite honest with you, like I'm really not used to dealing with there. I'm telling you, there's like guys that just got out of jail, felons that working at
yeah,
the warehouse, roofing places I go to.
yeah.
You guys are rough,
Yeah.
You
Like
can't go.
that's the level difference that you're bringing to the table here of professionalism.
Yeah, you can't go in there smiling, man, because they'll be like, "Who the fuck is this guy?"
This is too good of a kid here. He's scamming me. Get out of here. I'm not dealing with that guy.
He's too good. Yeah, so it's just interesting, man, because I got to kind of change up my approach a little bit. I got to kind of go in there, and because they they got to trust me. Even the guys on the forklifts in the back, there's trust. And you when you deal with these kind of guys, it's not like they're hard to deal with. You just be yourself, you're fine. But
Mhm.
they're hard asses. So the conversation's different.
And to go from a clientele, I don't know the type of clientele you're working with for the diabetic medicine, but I feel like that's a pretty, different to clientele than you're working with for pallets.
Yeah, what
For the
white
most
collar,
part,
blue collar, huh?
I would say it's a lot of the people that I service when it comes to diabetics is the general population, but I mostly deal with women because most of the time men are not on, they don't want to go on the computer and sell their products online. So um, I mostly deal with women, and to be honest, I don't really deal with them for the most part. I'm usually my virtual assistants. I actually like to call them virtual professionals now. My virtual professionals are
I like that.
dealing with them for the most part because, yeah, so for the most part, I'm just strategizing and managing for the most part. So, and then I've also been doing some consulting. I help people build this kind of business mentorship. So, um, the kind of conversations that I'm having is a lot different with entrepreneurs than it is with the guys in the warehouse. So it's pretty interesting. It's definitely a rush, walking into place sometimes, and it's just that all these guys are looking at you like, who is this? Who is this guy? So, and
What's
they're
been
all tatted up.
what what's been
They're
your
all
biggest
tatted
like head
up.
scratcher so far? Because I know with starting the second business, or for sure in the first business, what was something that threw you for a loop and kind of either caught you off guard, or maybe a hard earned lesson in the business world?
Hmm. I would say the hardest part about building that business was you get to a point where you can build it so much. Oh, this is a good hearted lesson. But you get to the point where you're closing deals all day, where it's literally driving your mind, it's everything, because you got people hitting you up all day.
Hmm.
And it's addicting because it's oh man, I can make 100 with this person, 500 with this person, 200 with this person. And it's you can get to the point where it's all day, and it's I think it's somewhat of an addiction. Closing deals can because it makes you feel good, when you make money. And the thing, the big lesson that I learned was because I always had this metric too when I first started, that I wanted to make $500 a day, and it was
Mhm.
I had to, like I couldn't leave the house. I had to make it, and it made me go crazy. Literally, that business made me go crazy. And then one day, my friend was like, "Hey, dude, you make enough money right now that you can just hire a virtual assistant. Just go ahead and do it." And that's when I hired a virtual assistant, and the lesson there was like, I'll never, ever work alone again. Ever. I don't give a shit what I do. If my businesses ever like break down one day and I have to go get a job, I'm taking a couple virtual assistants with me. That's what I'm doing. I'm like, all right, y'all help me. We're doing something. I'm bringing a team no matter what I do.
Right.
So I
That's
think
awesome.
like that's like that was the big lesson for me, because a lot of my life I was very much the lone wolf kind of person, and even in business I was very like lone wolfy. And the lesson was like, dude, you gotta get help. You gotta work with the team. You gotta it's a lot more fun to do it that way anyways. So I think, and another big lesson too that I learned too is you gotta delegate and hire as fast as possible. And I don't care what it is, like just hire a virtual assistant, like to do whatever. Just like what if it has to be with your calendar, if it has to be with like sending quotes to possible customers, email marketing, anything. Like just hire somebody to just take something off your plate so that you can start that process of like you're the boss and people work for you, versus just doing it all alone and working like a crazy man.
Well, I
When you
think
say that, oh, go ahead, Colton.
it's all right. I've been talking the man's ear off. You got a good question there, Dylan?
Yeah, I was gonna say, jumping into it like that, right? You're like, get somebody right away. A lot of people, I feel like, have the mindset of, well, I want to be profitable up front, but
Right,
but the people that usually think that usually aren't successful because they're
right,
not reinvesting back into the business. So
right.
when you're saying like, hey, I reinvested back into my business, and hire people to take things off my plate, how long did you have to do that before you really started seeing the turnaround happen, in the green?
The thing is, the way that I did it was, so okay, to answer your question, I hired somebody and it took me about 6 months to really start becoming, like, it got to the point, because at first I would help them. So I would help them close deals and I would close the deals myself. And then it got to the point where they were closing deals and helping me close deals. And then I got to the point where I had to say, okay, guys, I'm going to be away for the day. So you guys are going to have to like take care of everything here. So just, I don't care. Like, just make the best decision you can. And
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm,
the way I did it in the beginning. I would just say, just make the best decision, whatever. If you mess up, it's okay. And
that's awesome.
when you throw people out to swim, they either sink or swim. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow, that's a lot of trust in that situation. Yeah,
Wait, by the
putting
way,
people
like
out there.
what is the business model when you were saying like working with diabetic supplies? Like what are you doing there?
so basically, people, and I don't want to give out the sauce too much, but basically what you do is you market, and then people hit you up, and then you negotiate a deal for them, for you to buy their products. So
Mhm.
um you could put up bandit signs, you could go on Craigslist, you could go on Facebook Marketplace. There's so many diabetics online
Mhm.
that you can literally spend all day talking to them and trying to negotiate buying their products,
Okay.
on multiple things. So if you just think about flipping diabetic products, these diabetics get their products every single month.
Mhm.
So if you secure one, you have them for 12 months, and let's just say you make $100 on them.
Mhm.
So if you have good customer service and you're organized and you stay in front of them, make sure that you know when their products are coming, and they know that you want to buy their products. As long as you stay in front, you can keep earning that business. And as long as you have as long as you're organized with the way you follow up, you can just keep that going. And then eventually it just turns into a crazy snowball. And yeah, so basically the business model is, I really took the way I did it, most people, what they do is they put up signs and they market very locally. The way that I did it was I would market nationwide,
Mm-hmm.
through various marketplaces and stuff like that. And then what I would do is I would take their information from all these different platforms and I would put them into my CRM.
Mm-hmm.
So, does that make sense? So I would take the information
Mm-hmm.
from, like, let's say Craigslist or Facebook, and I would put them into my CRM. And my goal in the beginning was get as many phone numbers as I can.
Sure.
I wasn't making much money, but I knew if I could have their phone number and I could just build that thing up, I knew that, the more phone numbers I had, the more chances I had to actually close them eventually. And if you actually look at in the beginning, if you look at like how many messages, the rule of seven, you have to hit them up 7 or 8 times
Mm-hmm.
for them to do business. Literally, I swear to God, it was crazy. Sometimes right on that seventh or eighth text, they would message me and say, "Yeah, I have product." And it was like, I don't understand that rule. It's like a universal rule. But it was spot on, man. It was almost like,
We can thank Coca-Cola for that rule, by the way. They're the
yeah,
ones.
really?
They're the ones that came up with that case study about 7 impressions. So
Yeah.
that's why
I didn't know that.
Coca-Cola has billboards
Yeah.
in fucking Nigeria. They don't give a shit. They're like, you're gonna see us and you're gonna buy.
Yeah, exactly. So, it was crazy though, because it was like, I don't know, maybe like God is like, yep, he's really about it, he
And
wants it.
I
So
watched
give
your post too. You started with like, I got a few boxes, and as you went on, your boxes and your load just got like bigger and bigger. Watching that business grow, all of a sudden, I think I saw you with like a whole wagon one time,
yeah,
a product
yeah,
one time.
yeah, and that's like a normal thing now, like it's just insane, because if you can build an infrastructure and keep that customer service right, and keep your outreach and your marketing going all the time, and making sure all that stuff is running without you there, then you have. And I like to talk, like, this is what I talk about in my course, is like, you want to build a machine that you can walk away from so that you can enjoy your life. And that's pretty much what I did. Like, I built the machine after I hired that first virtual assistant. Then 6 months later, I was like, man, I'm ready to travel. I've been working my ass off pretty much all my 20s. I dropped out of college, you know. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm ready to go. So I went overseas at a year into my business. And right before I left overseas, I hired a second VA, and she was my manager. She became my man. She's now my manager. She manages both all my virtual assistants, 13 virtual assistants right now. So she manages all of them now. And yeah, I just kind of like learned from that process, because I knew that I didn't want to keep on just chugging away and doing all the dirty work, doing all the negotiation all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
You didn't want to be like your competition.
exactly, exactly. I
Yeah.
didn't want to be like my competition. I didn't want to be stuck in kind of like that rat race that they're stuck in, and I like to think of it like this: is, a person only has like a limited source of energy and focus. If I have 10 people, like, if you think about all the big companies, how much people do they have? They have like hundreds of people that are just working on their marketing, like a commercial. You know what I'm saying? They got
Mm-hmm.
so many brains on one thing. And so, like, that's how I like to think of it. It's like, how many people can you get on your team to like push and help you,
Mhm.
move forward. And
And
yeah,
through this process, right? I mean, it sounds like you started from the ground up. You realize you had a vision. You realize like I could be smarter than other people in this space and make a real deal out of it.
yeah.
Um, Along the way through this, who did you have like mentors? I know you went to Landmark, but did you have like mentors in these spaces helping you along the way, or were you like winging
Um,
it?
that's a good question. I didn't really have many mentors in the space, but I had a landmark Gary Bishop. I don't know if you know if you know him,
Mm-mm.
Colton.
No.
But anyway, so this guy he's a landmark forum leader,
Yeah, he's a leader. Yeah.
and he was my landmark forum leader actually when I first did this seminar, and eventually I hired him to for like kind of like life coaching and business coaching. Like he would just help me with my life. But just learning from him was so vital when it came to integrity, getting everything done. Like I knew if I did this, then I would get this. And that was like pretty much what I learned from him is like, okay, you just can't like many things I learned, but it's like, all right, you got to do this. If you do this, then you'll get this for sure. So I kind of like took that concept to, my DTS business. I remember if I knew that if I stayed on negotiating for 3 to 4 hours, I put a timer on 3 to 4 hours. I knew that I would make $500 by the end of the day because I would message people and then for 3 to 4 hours, close some deals. And then by the end of the day, people would start messaging me back. So then it was predictable.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing that I learned in with him is, and even in Landmark is like, okay, what's working and what isn't working. You know what I'm saying? And so you figure out what's working, and then you just keep doing what's working until it doesn't work. And that's what I did. Yeah, I did a lot of door knocking too. I don't know if you guys ever did that, but boy, it's the door knocking. I door knocked a lot. Door knocking was humongous for me. I don't know if you guys ever had door knocking jobs,
No, I
bro.
I did
Those
more
are
of
like,
like I built a business off of Cutco. I don't know if you're familiar with Cutco, the
oh yeah,
kitchen.
did you? Nice.
Yeah. So I took more of like the warm referral route with that.
Okay,
So by the time
nice,
I haven't fully exited that business, but yeah,
cool.
by the time I left there, that was kind of my machine. But what I would do, see, this is, 'cause I want to like, kind of like tailor this towards our audience of, um,
Sure.
it's easy to hear what you're saying and either be inspired or discouraged, right? And
Okay.
I rather lean it towards inspiration because what you're breaking down here is like, hey man, work hard, and eventually you'll get to the point where you realize I know this well enough to train someone else to replace myself, right?
Absolutely.
But there's also
100%.
another level where, I'd show up to appointments, and if you learn something well enough and you open yourself up to mentorship, you'll
Mm,
be inspired by shit that you didn't think you had the guts for. Like your mentors will share stuff with you, and we would do it. I'd show up to an appointment and my appointment's not there. There's no car in the driveway. And I'm
right.
like, I already drove here. So I would go to the neighbor's house and I would knock
Yeah.
on their door. I would go, oh, I'm so
Nice.
sorry. Do you know is Suzanne home? And they go,
Yeah.
"Oh, it doesn't look like she is. Could you call her for me?" And they call
Dude.
and they go, "Oh, I'm at the grocery store." I'm like, "Oh, that's all right." And I'd look at and I'd them eyes, right? I just pan the eyes to the poor neighbor, and I'm like, "I'm already here. If you could just help me out,
That's good.
you know."
Yeah. That's
But I just think it's a funny thing because what you're saying, like door knocking, like getting resourceful. I think to boil all this down, it would be like, hey, I know doing that stuff ain't easy, right? We can talk about it like it's easy, but what was the drive for you that you got up every day? Was it a vision? Was it were you running towards a carrot? Were you running away from a stick? What was the thing that kept you going?
what kept me going is well, I had to, like when I first started, well, a lot of it was like my mom was the type that she would like really say, "Hey, you got to go to college. You got to do a 9 to 5. You have to." And she was, she supports me now, but dude, I'm telling you, man, she was trying to discourage me, bro, like from the beginning. I love her, she was really trying to discourage me saying stuff when I didn't make the money. What either if it was my sales jobs or businesses that I started, she would she would dig into me and be like, "You can't be doing this for the rest of your life, like what are you doing? You're not good at this. Why don't you just go back to college?" Just like shit like that. And I just remember one time she looked at me because I had to ask her for rent, and
Mm.
when I had to ask her for rent to pay my
Mhm.
rent, that was like the worst.
Mhm.
And I remember, we were in the car one day and she looked at me and she's like, "You're not a Steve Jobs. You'll never be a Steve Jobs."
Oof.
And that was like one of the worst feelings, just like your own mom telling you, you can't do it. But that really, that really motivated me to prove her wrong. And it motivated me because I was like, ain't like, my pride got, thankfully my pride got in the way, thankfully.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm gonna prove her wrong. She's not gonna like nobody, because I just did the landmark forum. Like, no one can tell me what the hell I'm gonna do in my life. Like, there's nobody that can say, "Oh, you're not gonna be good at this." You know what I'm saying? Like, and so when she said that to me, it motivated me, and it hurt. Like, don't get me wrong, like it hurt, but it motivated me. And from there on, it was like anything I did was like I had to. It was like I have to make it. It's either make or bust. And I knew there was payoffs too, right? Like I knew that if I learned sales is the highest paying profession in the world. Um, so I knew that if I learned sales, I knew that okay, like you know, if I learn sales, I can make as much money as I want. And that was like my drive. A lot of the time, that was my drive. If I can get good at business, if I can get good at sales, when I was doing the cold calls, when I was doing the door to door stuff, it was to me, there was two things about it was I'm I'm gonna make it, and I gotta make it. I got so much invested into this that there's no way I'm failing. So that was one. But the second one was that want to get out of my comfort zone. I'm a very shy guy. And I would say still I'm I would say I'm still a little bit introverted. But the thing that what business and sales made me do was, and even Landmark too, it was like it made me have to, they say in Landmark, expose yourself, right? Like you
Mhm.
got to go out there and expose yourself. You get rejected. And I found that there was a rush to that. Eventually, it got to the point where there was a rush for me, and I liked it, and I enjoyed that. Like I could be somebody different, I guess you could say, right? Like there was like this. There's part of me that was coming out that I never experienced in my life, and I liked that. And so that was definitely the second part of why I did it too as well. So, but I just knew that like I could never go back to a job. I mean, plain and simple as it was like I can't do that. I'm not going back. It's not happening, you
It
know.
seems to happen, right? Especially in the world of sales, you either get bit by the bug and you start making that money and you start feeling that you
Yeah,
thrive on the hustle, or
yeah,
or it gets you and you can't handle the pressure a lot of
for sure.
times, and a lot of people go back to that 9 to 5,
Yeah. Which
and that's
which I
awesome. You
no, I feel like if I would have done it again, like I would have definitely stuck with like a 9 to 5 part time
Mhm.
because I'm learning like as I do this pallet business, like it's nice to be able to like just sit on pallets. I don't have to sell these. I can wait and get a better buyer. And like the way that I did it was, I quit the job. I lived on my friends' couches, a couple different people's couches and stuff like that. Barely had any money for everybody's going out. Listen, Dylan, Colin, everybody's going out. They're in their 20s, like having fun, right? And
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, dude, I gotta make it. I'm like, you know, you know,
After you, once you did make it, right? Like you got to where you're successful, and then you said you left it to some people, and you're like, I'm going on a vacation.
yeah.
How good did that feel, and where did you go?
It felt great, man. It felt amazing to know that I could do that, like I created that life, and I mean, yeah, I mean, it was great. It was awesome. And yeah, I went to South America to see, I have a Peruvian family. And so I hung out over there for a little bit. I was there for like 5 months. I met a girl over there, and I'm still seeing her till this day. And long story short is I traveled all through South America for about 2 years, and yeah, it just feels like it's a new feeling when you know that like you're getting it done, in the best way, like it, like you just know that you're dominating, and you're achieving what you want to achieve. It just feels amazing.
How much
Yeah.
sacrifice led up to you being in that position of being able to travel?
Oh my
How
God.
much
Like I
time
said,
specifically?
my mind was like, I went crazy during the DTS business. Like there, there was like, I took a lot of extremes, man. There was a lot of extremes that I did. I highly believed in integrity and stuff like that, and showing up to appointments even when I was tired. Like during that time, like my brain, dude, yeah, I was like, wasn't sleeping well, but I was making pretty good money by myself.
Hmm.
And that, like, if I could go back, I would have slept more.
Yeah, but how much time like went from the inception of the idea to a place where, let's say, you took the vacation, right? How
Well, I
much
mean,
time was that?
21 is when I started with my entrepreneur struggles, right?
Uh huh.
21 to like
Wow.
27, 26. I'm even
Wow.
27. I'm just starting to like in real estate. I'm just starting to like make like, $10,000 a month.
Mm.
And like, so 21 to 27, 28. Was it 20? Yeah, 27. It's 27, I think. But like through that whole time, man, there was a big, big sacrifice. Did a lot of sales stuff, learned a lot about marketing, and I was obsessed. I just knew that, um, I don't know, I just knew that I could always do it. I just knew it. And the thing about me is like I would learn something, and then after, like, if I learned something, it like made me re-motivated. So that, like, I don't know, I could always put like little carrots. So like I would literally not be making money for a while. My mom would be like, "What's going on? What's happening?" And I'd be like, "Oh yeah, we're getting this done and blah blah blah." But I could go long periods of time of not making money and still stay focused. So like, and I did that for a while. And
Well, the reason I was
so
asking that is because I think, sorry to interrupt you, but I want to kind of like, as we're landing the plane here, kind of
Mhm.
point out the value of mentorship, because you mentioned you have a course, right? And this
Yes.
is, in my opinion, one of the fastest, most straightforward ways to get where you want to go is by taking someone else's experience,
Oh yeah.
packaging it together and compressing our most precious resource, which is time. Because there's certain things that you can only learn through application, right?
Hmm.
Like no one's going to sit there and make sure that Michael gets out of bed in the morning, right? Like that's
Right.
on you. But all of those lessons that you learned, those stack up like that. A lot of the clients that I coach, I tell them like, hey, what you think you need is time. What you really need is information.
Right.
It took you 6-7 years to compile that information just because, like, hey man, you took the journey you took. That's cool. But if other people want to come behind you and follow your path,
Oh yeah.
I mean, now understand, you can look back and you're like, okay, hey, here's what, if you just want to get exactly where I'm at, here's what you got to do. Right.
Yeah, for sure. You could cut it down by a lot. You could definitely cut it down by a lot. I think just taking on, if you're an entrepreneur and you have your own business, you need to really look at what you could delegate, and you got to kind of like risk the work not being as good.
Mm.
Mhm.
And I would say you got to do that as fast as possible so that you can have more time to do the things that make more money. You got to work on the things that actually make money versus, designing things. And, you get what I'm saying? Like, you got
Yeah.
to
Big.
focus on the money making activities and
Yeah.
just like press on those, and then get somebody else to uh, do the other little things for you. And then when that starts to go, then you want to hire somebody to take your spot. And if I could like really give your audience what to do, it's like, yeah, like seriously think about hiring a virtual assistant for whatever company that you're in, and just break it down step by step and hire them, and go for it. Like, and I would even say this too, because if you're in sales, you need to have a virtual assistant. Like if you're an account executive, like you should get your virtual assistant to like make you quotes, like to help make you quotes, like send emails and do calls. Even like have her as somebody as like your person that answers your phone for you, just
Mm-hmm.
to make it make it look that you're more professional than everybody else.
Yep.
And it doesn't cost much money. You know what I'm saying? Like, just add a little bit of professional in there. And yeah, I think, like, to fully answer your question, yeah, there's little tricks here and there, when it comes to influencing and marketing and different stuff, but you got to sit down and do the reps.
Got to do the work.
You
Got to do
got to
the
do the
work.
work, yeah, because
Got to
like
do the work.
you got to do the work to really know every little thing that might happen.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so
Well, hey, man, if people want to connect with you and pick your brain or see what kind of resources you have to offer, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
for sure, you could go on my YouTube. I could send you guys my YouTube link.
Mhm.
I flip medical DTS, diabetic test strip, diabetic products. I coach people. I have a course on how to hire a virtual assistant and manage them. And then I also have a DTS course for beginners, A to Z, how to go to six figures locally, flipping diabetic test strips. So
Where
Send
do
you could
those
you,
all
where do
to
you,
me. Send those all to me. I will
what's
make
the
sure.
YouTube channel and where do they find the course?
Sure, for sure. So my YouTube channel, if you just look me up, Michael Cornell. I can also send you that link as well. And then if you go into my descriptions, you'll see my courses that I have for the website too. And I'll actually send you guys my website too. So
Cool. Well, hey, brother, it was a pleasure getting the chance to connect with you. And I love everything about your story, man. That is just flat out the
appreciate
American dream, Be
it.
broke
Yeah,
until you're not, right?
that's it, man. That's it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Michael. I appreciate it. I know this won't be the last time you'll come on. We'll definitely want to continue having to come on because I know your journey is just beginning, man. You
Just
got it.
beginning. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
just
Yeah.
beginning.
I want to say thank you guys for inviting me on, and whatever I could do for your audience, just let me know, and hope you guys are prospering as well. So
Yeah, man. Well, hey, if you guys are out in the audience, don't forget we always will take your money. So if you want to send that to us, yeah, we keep this sponsorship free for you. Today's sponsored by DTS. So how about that? Send us all some money.
Awesome, everybody. Take care, everybody. Love you.
Peace.